So, in the last class we talked about this ultrasonic transducer element, and before that we learned about these characteristics of the ultrasonic beam, and then we saw there are two fields or two regions along this ultrasonic beam. One is known as the near field, where you have lot of fluctuations in the intensity of the sound wave, and as you go away from the transducer, then it becomes a kind of more uniform. So, that zone is known as far field, and these two will depend on the size of the probe d and the wavelength lambda, which can also be expressed in terms of the velocity of sound waves and the frequency. So, in this manner, similarly the far field is characterized by this divergence angle alpha, which again depends on the lambda and d. Okay. Then we saw, due to this near field fluctuations, there is something known as dead zone, which is a distance into the sample close to the surface, which cannot be inspected because of these fluctuations, because a probe cannot receive when it is still transmitting. Okay. So, if the vibrations are still there and by the time an echo comes back to the transducer, then it will not be able to receive that echo, okay, while it is still vibrating. So, that is the effect of near field which gives rise to this dead zone. And then we saw how this dead zone can be addressed, how this can be taken care. So, there are different ways by which the dead zone effect can be addressed. One is using Schroeder pulse or high frequency pulses. Then the second method, we talked about a delay version or a delay layer, which will delay the echoes when they are coming back to the probe, and that is how this delay layer will give enough time for the probe and for the fluctuations to die down completely, and by the time the echo comes back, the probe will be ready to receive. And the other two methods by which this dead zone can be taken care are this. One is using a dual element probe which has two elements. One element is used as the transmitter and the other one is used as the receiver. So, in this case, since you have a second element which is only used as a transmitter, you do not have any dead zone problem in this case. Last method that we talked about was through immersion testing, wherein you can immerse the probe and or the sample both inside in a liquid, and since in a liquid like water, the velocity of water is much lower, that will again delay the echoes and provide enough time for these fluctuations to come down, and by the time the echo reaches the probe, it will be ready to receive them. Okay. So, this is how the dead zone can be taken care of, and then we started talking about these ultrasonic transducers. I mean, what are the components of a transducer and how the ultrasonic pulses are generated. So, what you do in an ultrasonic transducer, you supply a single spike of electrical signal and you convert it into high frequency mechanical vibrations or these ultrasonic pulses. Okay. So, that means this is a property which converts electrical energy into mechanical vibration, and as you all know, that is known as piezoelectricity. Okay. So, the main component of an ultrasonic transducer is this piezoelectric element. When you supply an electrical signal to this element, it will vibrate with a particular frequency, which depends on the thickness of the element. So, lower the thickness, higher will be the frequency, and that is why these elements are cut out into thin wafers, and this frequency different frequency can be generated by having these elements in different thicknesses. So, this is what we saw in the last class. So, today let us talk about how this construction is for this ultrasonic transducer. what goes inside it, and then we will see how it operates. So, the main component is this piezoelectric element, as I said. The most commonly known, most common or most well known piezoelectric material, as you might all know, is quartz. So, single crystals of quartz can be used as the piezoelectric element for ultrasonic probes. There is one more material which is known as PZT, which also shows very good piezoelectric property. The full form of this PZT is lead zirconate titanate. So, this P stands for lead, Pb, then Z is for zirconate and T is for titanate. So, polycrystalline lead zirconate titanate shows very good piezoelectric property. So, that again can be used in ultrasonic transducers. So, let us see what are those parameters in a piezoelectric element which control the mechanical vibrations. So, as I said, you supply an electrical signal and that is converted into mechanical vibration. So, let us say if you supply an electrical field F, it will generate a mechanical stress sigma. Similarly, if you have a mechanical strain epsilon, it will generate this electrical signal. So, this is either way, electrical signal can be converted into mechanical vibrations and vice versa. Okay. So, let us write these equations once again by introducing these proportionality constants. Okay. So, alpha and beta are the constants. So, this kind of transducers wherein you convert an electrical signal into mechanical vibrations, these are known as electroacoustic transducer. And these two constants that we just now introduced, that is alpha and beta, these are the acoustic properties of the element which will control this electroacoustic transducer. Okay. So, for having a good transmission, beta should be high, similarly to have a good receiver, alpha should be high. So, this is how these two constants, these two parameters alpha and beta control these ultrasonic transducers. So, if you have both high, it is good, then in the same transducer you will have good transmission and good receiving ability. But let us see whether it is possible to optimize both or to have high values for both in the same transducer. Now, if you see these two are related by stress and strain, which are also related to each other in this fashion, and within the elastic limit this is related by Hooke's law in this fashion, wherein y is the Young's modulus. Okay. Right. Now, if you replace sigma and epsilon in terms of the electrical signal f, this is what you will have. Okay. So, that means y becomes this, okay, as you could see from here. Let us write that. Okay. So, now you could see they are related to this Young's modulus in this fashion, and since Young's modulus is a constant, it is a material constant, you cannot optimize both alpha and beta simultaneously. Okay. So, if you increase alpha, for example, then beta has to be reduced, because this has to be kept constant. Okay. So, that is why it is not possible to optimize both alpha and beta together simultaneously in one transducer. So, you either have to compromise with the receiving ability, or you have to compromise with the transmission ability. But for the commonly used materials, for the commonly used piezoelectric materials, the values that you have for alpha and beta are enough for both transmitting and receiving. Okay. So, for example, if you look at the values that these two materials that we talked about, quartz and PZT, quartz has a large beta value around 58 volt per meter per Pascal. Okay. But alpha for quartz is low, which is around 2.3 meter per volt. Okay. On the other hand, if you talk about PZT, it has very high alpha value, which is 374, and it also has a beta value which is high enough, much higher than compared to, or it is not as low like what you have a very low value for alpha, it is 15. Okay. So, it is still more than 10, and at the same time it has a very high value for the alpha. So, that is why this is a very good piezoelectric element for an ultrasonic transducer. But quartz also can be used, because we are mostly concerned about receiving the signal which is coming out from the sample in terms of those echoes coming back from the defects. So, if you have a good receiver, and if you could ensure that you send enough ultrasonic pulses into the sample, then quartz also is a good material. In fact, it is being used in ultrasonic transducer. So, both of these materials have good properties, good acoustic properties in terms of these alpha and beta parameters, and that is why they are most commonly used piezoelectric materials in ultrasonic transducers. The other property which is needed for an ultrasonic transducer is the damping capacity, which is the ability to absorb vibration. Okay. Because as I said before also, by the time the echo comes back to the transducer, it should be ready to receive them. Okay. It should not vibrate when the echo comes back to the transducer, right. So, that means it should also have good damping capacity, so that these vibrations can be quickly absorbed and the probe is ready to receive after the transmission is over. Okay. So, that is why this damping capacity is also important for a ultrasonic transducer. So, PZT is a very good damping material. So, apart from the piezoelectric property, it also has good damping, and in most of the cases, to enhance this damping, a damping background is provided in the housing in which this element is there. So, when you talk about the construction of this ultrasonic transducer, we will talk about that also. In the background, you provide some material inside that casing where you place this element, which has good damping property. So, that within this probe, within the housing of this probe, these vibrations could be quickly absorbed. Okay. So, a damping background can also be provided, a damping support, a damping background into that probe housing to enhance this damping property of the ultrasonic probe as a whole. So, let us talk about the construction of the probes and then see what are the different elements and components of the UT probes. So, this will this comes in different shapes, but mainly they are either cylindrical or some kind of rectangular shape. And if you take a cross section for one of these cylindrical transducers, for example, this is what you will see inside. So, the main component, as I told, is this piezoelectric element. So, this is the active element. To which you have two electrical leads connected like this to supply that electrical signal, and then you have this inner sleeve and other things to house it properly in place. And here at the front face you have some protection for wear and tear. So, you have what is called a wear shoe, and this is the active element. These are the electrical leads. So, here on top should have a connector for electrical connection, and this background, as I mentioned, should be made of some material which has high damping capacity. So, a good damping background is provided in this housing, so that vibrations can be quickly absorbed after the transmission has happened, so that the transducer is ready for receiving. Okay. So, this is a schematic. Let me show you how do they look like. So, this is what they look like if you see these diagrams. So, this is the one that just now we have drawn. So, you can see the similar parts. The main component of course, is the active element, which is now housed inside a casing like this. So, this is a small cylindrical casing in which you have all the support and the electrical lead, and this blue area indicates that it has a sound absorbing high damping background, as I mentioned before. And it comes in different kind of shapes, like you could have this kind of cylindrical shape, or you could have this kind of rectangular shape, and so on. And the other aspect of this is that it also comes in a particular angle. Okay. So, the ultrasonic beam can be sent normally or perpendicular to the surface, to the sample, or it can also be sent at some angle, because in many cases, as we are going to discuss later, an incidence at a particular angle is also needed, because your defects and flaws can lie in different orientations. They may not be exactly perpendicular or they may not be parallel to the front face of the sample. They can lie at an angle also. So, that is one scenario where you may need an incidence at a particular angle. Then you have these welded joints, welded plates, wherein you have a weld to inspect. So, there again if you have a V joint kind of thing, it is always at an angle. So, in those cases again you have to use an angle probe. Okay. So, in order to provide that angle, as you could see, this kind of wedge is provided here. So, the piezoelectric element is now sitting on this wedge, and this wedge is cut out at a particular angle that is needed. So, this will be the incidence angle for this particular probe. Okay. So, this is how an angle probe is built, and in this case you could see there are two elements. Okay. Here it is only one element, here also it is a single element, but in this case you could see there are two elements, and for these two elements there are two separate connectors and two separate leads. So, this is the dual element probe that I talked about some time back while talking about dead zone. So, these kind of probes can be used when you do closed surface analysis or closed surface inspection, because in that case since the reflector is very close to the surface or very close to the probe, this dead zone effects will be prominent. So, in order to avoid that, this kind of dual element probe can be used, wherein you have two separate elements, one for transmitting and another for receiving. So, this is what is being shown over here. Okay, so, that is how the construction is for this ultrasonic probes. And if you talk about the test equipment, so apart from the probe, you should also have the display in which you can see that signal, the defect signal, and you should also have a power source to power this probe. So, all those things is built into a compact small equipment, and if you see the major components of that piece of equipment, this is what we will have. This probe we already talked about. Okay. So, this has to be connected to that small box which will contain the all other elements, including the electronic circuit and the power source, and it will also have amplifiers and things like that to amplify the signal, so that it can be properly displayed into the display that the equipment has. Okay. So, this probe will be connected to a pulse generator, and this has to be connected to the system to first amplify the signal. So, it will have an amplifier, and then you will have the display. Which can show the display in terms of amplitude and the time base, and this we have seen that you will have an initial pulse, and then the back wall when you have a sample over here. Okay. And if there is anything in between, you will see that defect echo coming in between the initial pulse and the back wall signal. Okay. Right. So, all this thing apart from this probe, all this pulse generator, display and everything will be built into a small compact box, which will have everything. Like I said, it will have the electronic circuit, it will have the display, and it will have also the power source. This box itself can be connected to a power source, which will in turn power the probe. Okay. So, this is how the system is and the major component of the system. And in the next lecture, we are going to see how this test equipment is used to do ultrasonic testing. So, we will see the test method and different process parameters and so on. So, today I will stop here, and I will see you next time. Thank you.